I will tell them that it is if they want to turn off their camera.
Recording.
Get everybody to mute their
Everybody needs to mute. Yeah.
microphones. Yeah. Keep them muted throughout the evening. At a certain point in time, we'll allow you to unmute, but for now, let's stay muted. Okay. Thank you.
I think that's mostly Chris who is unmuted. That I think might be causing the problem.
Hey, Chris, can you mute your microphone, Chris Capurso? Maybe I can help her mute herself.
I think it might be a problem with me. I've got two things up.
Oh, because Jim has got his on. You're gonna probably have to have Jim shut his down, Sue.
He's in another room.
But still feedbacking.
I'm gonna have to sign off.
Okay.
But I think everybody needs to mute is the issue because it could come from anybody. The problem can come from anywhere.
I'll mute all at this point, but then you'll have to unmute yourself.
For some reason, there was a second screen for me coming in, and I don't know. It happened.
We had that trouble a couple of days ago, Sue. So there's something at your end.
It's weird, but it's corrected.
Okay, good. Why don't you do the introduction, Sue?
I will. I apologize for that awful sound. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening to hear Deborah Ross present Writing Western New York's Eclipse Story Together. Deborah has given us permission to record today's presentation, and recording is underway. If you would like to shut off your camera, you can do so using the camera icon in the lower left corner below your screen. I'm Sue Bonafini. If we haven't met, I am the Assistant Director of the Cobblestone Museum. Our museum lies in the hamlet of Childs in Orleans County between Rochester and Buffalo, New York. We welcome visitors May through October to tour our 10 campus buildings with our trained guides, and our buildings include 3 cobblestone National Historic Landmark structures. Some of you are joining our audience for the first time, so welcome. We're glad you've discovered us. And some of you are return viewers to our virtual programming, that is, so welcome back. The Cobblestone Society is thankful for your generous support to each of you who registered for tonight's event. We're especially grateful if you chose to support us at higher levels of giving. A sincere thank you. Tonight, I will monitor the chat box. Deb will answer questions either during a pause in her lecture or at the end of her talk. And for anyone who may encounter a problem using the chat box, we'll take a pause at the end after she's made her remarks and answered questions to see if there's anyone who needs, just by a raise of the hand, to ask a question. So don't worry if you have trouble with the chat box, but that's what we would prefer. Please remember that microphones will be muted to prevent unwanted background noise. Director Doug Farley will now share a few words if he would like, but I think you're going to pass, you said, Doug. Is that correct?
I think you've covered all the words for us, Sue. Thank you.
Okay, then without any more ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker with a short biography about her. Our speaker has a very lengthy but important number of titles. She is chair of Rochester's Eclipse Task Force and co-chair of the American Astronomical Society's National Solar Eclipse Task Force. After witnessing 2017's Great American Eclipse in Missouri and understanding its implications for the Rochester area for 2024, Deb Ross started the Rochester Eclipse Task Force. The task force now has over 750 members across many sectors, and the Rochester area has become known as the most engaged U.S. region preparing for totality. After the American Astronomical Society's Solar Eclipse Task Force held its meeting in Rochester in 2022, they asked Deb to co-chair the national task force to help other communities learn how Rochester has been preparing. Deb is the founder and publisher of the community websites kidsoutandabout.com, which is for parents who want to know what's happening locally for families, and beyondthenest.com, which is for older adults who want to learn about local arts, culture, and recreation events in the area. The network began in Rochester 23 years ago and now serves 52 regions in the United States and Canada, with 15 million visitors per year and 800,000 subscribers to a weekly e-newsletter. So I'm very happy to present Deborah, who is now going to begin her talk. Deborah?
Thank you so much, Sue. And Doug, wherever you disappeared to, Doug. I can't see Doug anymore, but okay. I'm really happy to be here tonight. I'm going to share my screen, and so you'll see more of that and a little less of me. But the reason I call this Writing Western New York's Eclipse Story Together is because everyone who has been in the path of totality of an eclipse, of a total solar eclipse, has a story. Every community that's been in totality has a story. And so everyone who is going to experience this in a very short amount of time now, each one of you, assuming you get yourself into the path or stay in the path, depending on where you are, you're going to have a story too. And so what this is in only 46 days. Now, what Sue said is true. I have literally been working on this for almost 7 years since the 2017 eclipse. And I'm going to tell you that story because my story is different from yours, but you'll see what I mean about it's a story. It is also a moment in history. And one of the things you guys know at the Cobblestone Museum is that it's really important to mark those moments, to document those moments. And so you have a unique opportunity as a organization dedicated to history to be really in this moment and also document this moment for the future. If you think about most moments in history are thrust upon you, right? And the story is how you react to it. So think COVID, right? Think 9/11, think D-Day. Those, they catch you unaware. This is something different. This is something that scientists have known for hundreds of years, that on Monday, April 8th, at exactly 3:20 p.m., this region would be in the path of totality. So this is a moment in history we can prepare for, and we're doing that. We're doing that in earnest. And so I'm inviting you all to do that now with us, so you have enough time to prepare. So we're going to look at several different ways about what actually will be happening in Western New York on Monday, April 8th. So the total eclipse of the sun will begin at 2:07 p.m. That's what we call first contact. It's when the moon starts, that you can see just a little teeny tiny sliver of it start to cover the sun. And then it will gradually progress for an hour and 13 minutes until at 3:20 p.m., the moon will so thoroughly have covered the sun from our perspective on Earth that we won't see directly the light of the sun anymore. And that totality, it's called totality, and it will last for approximately 3 minutes and 38 seconds in Rochester. It'll be a little longer actually in Orleans County. The closer, you'll see, the closer you are to the center line, the longer it is. So in Brockport, which is dead on center line, 3 minutes and 43 seconds of totality. The top of Canandaigua Lake has 2 minutes and 52 seconds of totality. And we're going to look at a map in a minute and show you what that actually means. After totality, the moon will continue its march across the sun and for another hour and 13 minutes, and then the full eclipse will end at 4:37 p.m. That's one way of looking at what's happening in Western New York. Here's another way of looking at the science of this is not to scale, okay? Because the sun is actually 400 times bigger than the moon, and the moon is 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun is, which is the thing that accounts for why in this epoch in Earth, the lining up occasionally of the moon and the sun with the Earth will cause it to have a shadow on the Earth. That's to say it really, really quickly. Moon goes between Earth and sun, casts big shadow on Earth. We are in that shadow during a total solar eclipse. The total solar eclipse, the real shadow is called the umbra. The penumbra is the portion of the world that will see a partial eclipse, where you don't get totality. You're not in darkness, but you can see part of the sun covered by the moon. That's the penumbra, that part of the shadow. Here's another way of looking at what's happening on April 8th of 2024. The moon, so the shadow starts down in Mexico. Okay, so the path goes from bottom left to upper right in this case. So it starts in Mexico and then traveling at about, I think it's 2,300 miles an hour. It will travel across Mexico, then Texas, parts of Oklahoma, large part of Arkansas, little corner of Missouri, little corner of Illinois, much of Indiana, much of Ohio, Northwest Ohio, the little clipped corner of Erie, Pennsylvania, then Western New York, the top of the Adirondacks, and the top of Vermont, New Hampshire, and much of rural Maine, and then out through the Canadian Maritimes. It goes over Gander, Nova Scotia, but it does not, important for us, it does not hit the East Coast of the United States. That's going to be very key for us, as you're going to see in a little bit. Here's a closer view of where totality will happen in Western New York. Everywhere between the two blue lines is in the shadow, and the red line is the center. So again, the closer you are to the red line, the longer totality lasts. So you can see Orleans County, wow, what an experience. It's going to be amazing. You can also see that the top of Cayuga and Seneca Lake are in totality. The bottoms of them are not. So Ithaca, not in totality. Watkins Glen, not in totality. I have heard that somebody in Watkins Glen is having a watch party. This is a terrible idea. It is true that if you're looking up through approved solar filters from Watkins Glen, you will see 99% of the sun covered by the moon. However, 99% is not totality. Not at all. It is literally night and day. We tell everybody who might be considering stopping in Ithaca or in Watkins Glen to go 10 or 20 miles north so that they can actually be in the shadow. You need to be in the shadow. So if you take nothing else away from the talk tonight, it's that you must be in that path to have the experience of totality. So another way of looking at what's happening, this is a simulation from Rochester. Interesting, right? That you see the direction of the moon moving across the sun. It's not what you might expect. It moves from the bottom right to the upper left. And it looks like it pauses, of course, in the middle for totality, but really the simulation is just paused for dramatic effect here. Totality will last anywhere between 3.5 and 4.5 minutes on the center line, depending where you are in the country. So here's another way of looking at this. This is actually my favorite slide in the entire presentation. I could leave it on this slide. I could be hypnotized by this slide. Maybe you all can too. If you want this slide at the end of my presentation, I'll be happy to email it to you. But the thing that I love about this is partly because I'm a nerd, but I love looking at the difference in how the path goes, what it looks like from the ground, right? If you look in the upper left-hand corner of our map here, we've got Vancouver. Look at how it travels from right to left that way. And if you look at Miami, look at how it travels from the bottom right, then swings across into the upper right. But of course, in totality, it's really pretty glorious. The difference here is because the Earth is tilted, the Earth is turning, and the moon is moving too. So that accounts for how different it looks from the different places. And I could just go on and on about this. I'll spare you, but again, if you like me want to see a lot of this, you can. It does illustrate though how 99% is not totality. Look at Toronto. Toronto is not actually in the path. Toronto is just north of it. So not good enough to stay in Toronto. You need to go south to London or St. Catharines in Ontario if you're in Canada. Okay, this is another way of looking at this is as it's a once in a several generations event. What I mean is, actually a total solar eclipse happens somewhere on the Earth once about every 18 months. So as a thing, as a celestial phenomenon, it's not actually that rare. It is rare given where you're standing. So the average time between eclipses for anywhere on Earth is several hundred years. In the Rochester area, we've kind of been blessed because we had a total solar eclipse. The last one was in 1925, only 99 years ago. And the next one won't be until 2144, which is 120 years. So that really does make it once in several generations. This is our moment in 21st century, but it's not, and you'll see later, you'll be able to chase them if you want to go to some in upcoming years. Another way of looking at what's happening is about what's going to happen here on the ground. So we are expecting anywhere between 375,000 and 500,000 visitors to visit the 9-county area around the Rochester area from the weekend of April 5th through the 8th. Some of them are passing through on their way to Buffalo or Niagara Falls, but lots of them will stay here, and they'll partly stay here because of the experiences that we've planned for them, not just for those 3 minutes and 38 seconds, but for the whole weekend. So it's happening, and it's happening largely because you saw that map of the East Coast, right? That we are the closest major city to the metropolitan, in the path to the metropolitan regions of Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and DC. That coupled with the outreach that Visit Rochester has been doing and others, individually on their own, that's going to account for so much traffic and so many visitors. The range is wide. And the reason the range is wide is because it will depend on the forecast on Monday, April 1st, as to whether we're going to be on the lower end or the higher end of that. If the forecast calls on April 1st for anywhere between partly cloudy to sunny for our area a week from then, that's when people will make their plans. That week in New York State, by the way, that intervening week is Easter break week. And so the kids are off anyway. And so people will make those decisions last minute if it looks good to get into the path. The other thing is that, as I'm going to tell you, and you can be skeptical now, you might even be skeptical after my talk, but this is a profoundly meaningful experience for regular people, for everybody under the sun, every individual and every community. And to make the most of it, everybody needs to be aware that it's going to happen so that it doesn't catch them by surprise, so that they can prepare for it adequately and so that they can experience it safely. It's very straightforward to experience it safely, but you just do need to know how to do that. This is the other thing that really is going to happen. And I'll be telling you why, but you can make your assumptions from all these people flooding in from the major metropolitan regions. I actually had an interview on Friday with a writer from the New Yorker, and he is originally from right here. He's from Greece. And 2 weeks ago, he went into the office and his editor said, "Hey, Lane, you're from Rochester, right?" "Yeah." He said, "Well, we hear the entire world is going to be converging on Rochester in 7 weeks. How about you be the one to write the article?" And Lane said, "Okay." And so the reputation actually has preceded our area, as Sue was saying, and it's not just idle chatter. We really are the most prepared region in the entire path. So that will be happening. So my obsession, it's not really my job. I have that real job of, publishing kidsoutandabout.com. I have a staff of 21 who fortunately loves me and has been taking on a lot of work lately. My obsession is to help our area write this eclipse story for every individual and together to make sure everybody's safe. We are as comfortable as possible. Remember, it is April 8th, that this is accessible to as many people as possible. And also, especially from your perspective, given that you are interested in history, to document this for the future. It is an incredible moment. There's nothing negative about an eclipse. It's all positive. And so we want to make the very most of this moment to have these stories collected for the future. So my story actually starts not as my story at all. It starts as my daughter Ella's story, and it starts back in 2012. So my daughter Ella was 11 years old in 2012. And she came home from a class at the Strasbourg Planetarium in downtown Rochester. She came home that night and said, "Mom, in 5 years, I will be 16. Yes, you will. And I'll have my license." I said, "I assume you will." And she said, "And you and I are taking a road trip to Missouri." I said, "That's lovely, darling." Because who plans for something 5 years out? Of course, that came to bite me because I've been planning for this for 7 years, but who plans for something 5 years out, much less an 11-year-old? That's like half her life. But of course, it ended up happening. And so in 2017, Ella let me know that we would be traveling. Well, she let me know in 2012 that we would be traveling to the Great American Eclipse that was happening in 2017 here across the country. So many of you will remember that. So it started in the upper left-hand corner of the country, is what I would say, in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. And it traveled across the country, across the Midwest, and down out through South Carolina. Now, this eclipse was actually largely a rural eclipse. It went over lots of national parks. It didn't go over a lot of major metropolitan areas. But Ella decided we were going to travel to St. Louis. And so, of course, we drove from Rochester to Missouri that weekend. And actually 3 months out, she said, "Mom, have you made our hotel reservations yet?" I said, "What do you mean? It's 3 months to go until this road trip for a weekend. What do you mean?" She said, No. Got to make our reservations. Steve Fentress at the planetarium said we need to make sure we reserve early because there won't be hotel rooms. I said, "Okay, fine." But Ella was right. I got a hotel room in the western part of St. Louis, but there weren't a lot left, even 3 months out. So on Saturday, August 19th, we landed in St. Louis. And the very first thing I saw at our hotel was this. And I took a picture of it. By this time, by the way, in 2017, I was on the board of trustees of the Rochester Museum and Science Center. So I was pretty well steeped in the science of this. And, just because I am rah Rochester girl, and I knew this was happening in 2024, I was starting to take a mental checklist. What were these areas doing to prepare, and what could I learn from it? So the very first thing I saw was this. And if you notice, it's this lovely box, a couple of trays actually out on throughout the lobby of the hotel. And it's basically, everybody said, "Take one, take as much as you want." Really? It was Eclipse gum and sun-made raisins and Capri Sun and Starburst and Milky Ways and moon pies. There was a whole other thing of moon pies. And of course, mental checklist. I looked at it and I thought, you know what? That was really inexpensive. Look at how happy they have just made all of these people. Look at how they've put that little flair of class on our trip to help get us excited for this thing. And it maybe cost them $100 to have this out in the lobby. Okay, inexpensive to make people happy with a little creativity. Check. So whenever I go to a city, I always go to the Science Center, and this was no different, especially because this is a science-oriented event. So on Sunday, August 20th, the day before the Great American Eclipse, we went to the Science Center, the St. Louis Science Center, bright and early. And it was, if you notice where St. Louis is, so we were right there in St. Louis, and this is us. This is me, actually. Ella took the picture at the Science Center. And it's 9:45 in the morning here, and you can see that line is already out the door. Check. People are excited about this thing. Okay. So the very first place that I went when we got in the door at 10 o'clock was I made a beeline for the gift shop. And I took 2 of the last 3 mugs off the shelf. Like literally, there were only 3. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, the day before the eclipse. I took 2 of them because I wanted them. And they said, "Great American Eclipse, August 21st, 2017, nice picture of the eclipse and St. Louis Science Center. And I marched over to the guy behind the counter, who had been definitely standing there for 40 years, you could tell. And oh, by the way, if you haven't assumed this already, I talk to everybody. I talk to everybody wherever I go. And this was no different. My children have known this their whole lives. They've been embarrassed by it their whole lives. Okay. But I'm talking to the guy behind the counter and I explained, okay, Western New York, 2024, what do I need to know? And he said, okay, whatever merch you people are thinking of buying, double it. I can't keep it on the shelves. And he pointed over, he said, look at those t-shirts. I only got 3X and extra small left. And the eclipse haven't even happened yet. And those were the t-shirts that also said Great North American Eclipse, August 21st, 2017, the St. Louis Science Center. And he said, look at those t-shirts. And he pointed over to the regular St. Louis Science Center t-shirts. They were there. There's a lot of those. And so the lesson I was taking away from this was that when the merchandise, people want this. This is an exercise in nostalgia, especially given that there's not going to be another eclipse in the continental US for 21 years. We got really blessed to have this short amount of time between 2017 and 2024. Before 2017, the last major one wasn't since 1979. And the next one is not until 2045, right? So that's 21 more years. So people are going to be nostalgic for this. And they want to remember where they were when this thing happened. So on all of the merchandise, you need the place. You need what the name is. You want the Great North American Eclipse on there. You want your event name if you've named your event. Even if you're just doing this with your family, costs you nothing to name your event with your family. And think about how you've just sort of cemented this in your entire family's mind. You want to make sure to put the date on this. And the other information that we learned when looking at the data after 2017 is that people will order it afterward too. So if you over order for your region, that's okay. People will buy it later, or you'll just keep it and it'll be valuable someday. So now St. Louis had so much going for it. We heard about all these things that the St. Louis area was doing. And I said to Ella, we could stay right here in St. Louis for the eclipse. I mean, we could go, they had a skyscraper that there was going to be a brunch on the top floor of it. And that there's an astronaut that's going to be talking and they'll give you and she said, Mom, I have traveled hundreds of miles. I've been planning for this for 5 years. And you think that I'm going to be outside the path of totality for this event? 99% is not totality, because St. Louis was not itself in the path. It was just outside. Now, I was a skeptic going into this. I was doing this mostly because Ella wanted to do it. And what mom doesn't want her 16-year-old daughter who wants to take a road trip with her to something cool, you want to do that. But I didn't understand what was going to happen. I thought, okay, it gets dark every night. I know what darkness is. I know what shadows are. The moon goes around the earth goes around the sun. Okay, it's a nice coincidence that sometimes they line up. And I had also seen lunar eclipses, which were nice, but really nothing to write home about. So I was a skeptic, but absolutely willing to go along with this. So the next morning, we got up early, or at least I did, because I had a 16-year-old, she doesn't get up early. And I went to the lobby and I was looking at the Weather Channel with all of the other people who were up at 6:30 in the morning looking at clouds and how they were moving. And so what we decided was on that day, we landed at noon in a little tiny town called Kimmswick, Missouri, which, as you can extrapolate, was in fact in the path of totality. And that's Ella. You can see her. She had already gotten her eclipse merchandise many months before that. She ordered a Missouri t-shirt. And now I just want to explain, as you're thinking about your own eclipse plans, there are two basic kinds of eclipse experiences: a we eclipse experience or a me eclipse experience. Now, a we eclipse experience is one that you're experiencing with dozens or hundreds or thousands of people. And during this will bond that community like no other. You'll never forget. You also will hear the screams. Like, it is marked by screaming and crying and hugging. And it is just, it's amazing. If you're not a crowd person, and my daughter Ella is definitely not a crowd person, then what you want is a me eclipse experience. And your bond is going to be with the people who are with you and the universe. And I'm just going to pause right now, because in case I don't remember to say it later, you want to be with people you love for this. And so you might already be getting calls from people that you just know from who don't live in the path, asking if you have a spare room or if they can bring their air mattress or whatever. If you don't love them, say no, because you are never going to forget who you were with for this experience. And you just don't want anything to mar it, because I'm telling you, it's profound. I'm going to tell you about what it was like. So between 12:15 and 1:18 p.m. is when we were doing this. So it takes about, again, like an hour and 13 minutes for the moon to travel across the face of the sun. I'm not going to say that it's boring, because it's not boring, but it isn't something that you just look at the entire time, because you can't really see the moon moving. It doesn't move fast enough. And so what you're doing is you're putting your glasses on to view it, and then you're taking it off and you're talking to the people around you. Now, also during this time, we weren't entirely alone, because what Kimmswick, Missouri decided it was going to have as its eclipse experience, as its identity, is that it was going to make sure that everybody in this tiny town, either a resident or a visitor, experienced the eclipse safely. It was that straightforward. That was going to be their identity. So they sent teenagers around with fists full of glasses on bicycles throughout the town, seeing whether there was anybody who didn't have any glasses and just giving you them for free. Now, of course, Ella and I had already prepared and had our glasses, but also, of course, I talked to the guy on the bicycle. That's how I knew that. So, 16-year-old girl doesn't want me talking to the teenage boy on the bicycle. Too bad, so sad. I was going to talk to him. And just hearing about how it was a very deliberate plan, that was what the community decided that its identity would be for this. I thought, okay, check. It's another check mark for what I need to know, that there is community identity to be had in this experience of preparing for the eclipse, regardless of whether people were all together or they were on their own. So I took that lesson away. But also this other lesson about the glasses, if glasses become at a premium and you can only get one for your group of, let's say, 4 people, that's okay, because you can share them. Because again, you're not actually looking at it absolutely constantly for this hour and 13 minutes. And the most important part of this is that you do need them. You can't look at the sun ever, either regular time or during partial phase. You can't gaze up at the sun without risking serious eye damage unless you are wearing ISO certified solar filters. And I'm just going to grab a pair of my glasses here. I know that I have the thing on, but the little ISO certification is, if you look at my screen, it's in the lower corner there. Your glasses, if they don't say ISO certified, they're definitely not good to use. Even if they do say ISO certified, there could be problems with them. We are seeing a lot of fraud from a lot of foreign imports, which did not actually go through the US lab certification to make sure that they are perfectly safe. And so I'll share a little later, like where you can go to make sure that your glasses, if you're buying them online, that they're from a certified reseller that's been approved by the American Astronomical Society. Okay. So, but during this experience, I started to understand what this whole eclipse thing was all about, because you have read about the solar system since you were in 3rd grade, right? You've seen movies, you see simulations, but there's nothing like the experience. You feel the solar system with your whole body during an eclipse. The sun, the moon, the earth, and you are aligned, and you experience it with all of your senses. It's an amazing feeling. And then at 1:19 p.m. on Monday, Central Daylight Time, when the moon finally covered the entire of the sun, you must take your glasses off once the world goes dark through your glasses, or you will not be able to see the eclipse. You will not be able to see totality. So glasses on during all the partial phase, glasses off for totality when the moon it darkens the sun. And what you're actually looking up at is the moon and not the sun. And then once it's over and you see a spike of light in your eye again, then you put your glasses back on and you can watch the second half of the eclipse. My description right there did not do this justice. And my description is not even going to be able to, but I'm just going to tell you what it is like. For that minute and a half, it was a minute and a half where we were in totality there. I was actually only aware of those 4 bodies in the entire universe: the sun, the moon, the earth, and me. Not even that kid across the car on the other side who had been planning for this for 5 years. I forgot she was even there. What you see is it looks like a velvet hole in the sky. You see the dark face of the moon. You see the corona of the sun streaming out from behind it. The sky is midnight blue. The stars come out around the sun and moon. And all around the horizon, all 360 degrees, it is a sunset glow of red and gold. And the birds actually fly back to their trees. The animals are confused into thinking that it's actually night. So animals behave as they would normally when it turns dark. Now, this is not a sudden darkness. This is a sudden darkness. It is not a gradual darkness. It is not like a sunset in terms of that hour. And it doesn't get gradually darker for that hour and 13 minutes. You have no idea it's happening. Unless, of course, you're part of the millions of Americans who do know that it's happening and you're watching it on purpose. You would have no idea it's happening. Even when the moon has covered 95% of the sun, there's still the same amount of light as it is on an overcast day. We experience that as day. And because your pupils have gradually dilated out there, you just don't know that this is anything other than a regular day, which means that during totality, I actually I think it's because I'm a mother, I tapped into what it must have been like in that sudden darkness it's only the last minute, from 99%, as 99% goes to 100%, that the amount of light coming from the sun goes down by 100 to 1,000 times. So that's why it is actually safe to take off your glasses, but not safe to take off your glasses until it's completely covered, because that 99% not good enough. You'll damage your eyes if you just gaze at it. You won't be able to anyway. I mean, your body doesn't let you do that. But that's important to know. So it was a transformative moment. I think, what the fear would have been like. Imagine you're a mother and all of a sudden that thing that you and your children depend on to live is suddenly gone. And it's not suddenly gone for like a few seconds, like if a big bird flies in front of the sun or something like that. It's gone for minutes and you don't know if it's ever coming back and you think you're going to die. And I could feel it. I could feel like these generations of mothers behind me who didn't know this was going to happen. So it was a really transformative experience. And I think my next, oh no, hang on a second. So afterwards, when the sun came back out, I said to Ella, well, we're going to watch the other half, right? Another hour and 13 minutes as the moon moves the other way. And she said, nah, I'm done. Let's go to Chicago. And so did everybody else in the country. And it's not that they actually went to Chicago, but this is a map of the drive sheds to and from the eclipse in 2017. And it shows the major routes that people took and sort of the shortest distance between them and totality. And so the traffic getting out was crazy from almost everywhere, because people trickle into an eclipse, like, over hours or even days, like they trickle into where they're going to be. But psychologically, once totality is over, people are done. And because it had been so long from 1979 to 2017, and the world was different sort of in 1979, we weren't quite prepared for the level of traffic that there would be so suddenly. There was a bridge between Kentucky and Ohio that was bumper to bumper for 17 hours going north. And people were just not prepared then. We are prepared now. We have all that data. And so regions have been able to prepare in a way that they weren't able to before. Also, that was a largely rural eclipse. The major cities that were in the path were St. Louis was just outside the path. Nashville was in. Greenville, South Carolina was in. Parts of Portland were in. But really, it is a very urban eclipse this time. There were 12 million people who lived in totality in 2017. There are 31 million people who live in totality in the US for 2024. So it's a bit different of a scenario. It's still going to be monstrous, again, because they're coming from the east and south only for our eclipse. So now it's Monday, April 8th. So we're fast forwarding 7 years. I knew that this was happening. And because I kind of know everybody in the Rochester area who makes things happen, and because I was on the board of the Science Center, and I was actually the 2018 incoming chair of Visit Rochester's Visitor Industry Council, I decided there needed to be a task force. We needed to prepare early and that it was going to be fun. And so I decided I was chair of that task force. And I was kind of like this natural chair because, as you can see, I am a painfully cheerful dork. And this really is how I am. I'm not putting this on for a presentation. My poor staff, my poor children, they've had to deal with this for forever, but this really is how I am. So I was chair. I'm going to get this out of the way right away. So the first question that everybody asks is, what happens if it's cloudy? Because that's important. What does happen if it's cloudy? Well, the eclipse will still happen. There is nothing, like people who don't understand that this is not just predicted to happen or hopefully to happen. You can't reschedule this. It's going to happen. And I told you what a sunny day eclipse is like, what that experience is like. The world around you during a sunny day experience is like about an hour after sunset. It is twilight. You can still take pictures of people around you. You can still see around you. Like it's a dark blue sky. But during a cloudy day eclipse, in totality, it is pitch black. So it's going to get profoundly dark if it's a cloudy day eclipse, like midnight, and nobody's ever going to forget it. One of the things my co-chair of the National Task Force says is that, and he's been to many eclipses, a total solar eclipse experienced under cloudy skies is more exciting than a partial solar eclipse seen under clear skies. So regardless of whether it's going to be sunny or cloudy, you want to make sure that you're in the path of totality and that the people you love don't say, oh, it's going to be cloudy, I don't think I'll make the trip. No, you want them to. That being said, this was this is a NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association. Anyway, this is their satellite view of April 8th of 2023. And interestingly enough, the entire path is clear, except for Texas. That part of Texas was clouded out that time. Now, we have in our area where we're protected under Lake Ontario, we have a 51% chance of sun on any given April 8th at 3:20 p.m. 51% chance. So it's really half and half. But it's April. It's the rainy season everywhere. And so Dallas, which has the greatest chance of sun in the US at that time, only has a 61% chance of sun. You just don't know. And so if the forecast, again, on April 1st is anywhere from partly cloudy to sunny, they're going to drive from the East Coast to our area, especially because they've heard of all that we're doing. But we just never know, and we're just going to accept whatever comes, and it's going to be amazing. So we have been preparing for, well, the royal we has been preparing for almost 7 years. The rest of the task force, we started really doing our work in 2018. And in 2019, we had the Nashville, one of the two people who managed the main eclipse activities in Nashville. We actually had her come 5 years out in 2019, in April of 2019, for 2 days of seminars to teach our region what to do, how to make the very most of this. And nobody else did that. Like, I mean, it's partly because I'm a little nuts about this, but also there's it's fun. It's fun to get together and plan for this amazing thing and make the most of it. So we are blessed, though, to have 3 main organizations who are doing the lion's share of the organizing work. So the Rochester Museum and Science Center is in charge of outreach, education, information, science, safety. Visit Rochester is in charge of spreading the word about what Western New York is doing outside of Western New York to help get heads in beds, as they like to say in the tourism biz, and to help bring people from all those major metropolitan regions. And even more than that, it's to help us get a reputation for being a great place to come, so that even those people who don't make the trip will be able to leverage all the buzz about what's happening, so that people think of our area as a tourism destination. And the Genesee Transportation Council. Typically, it is harder to get the officials, the government and transportation people on board for something. But we are really, really blessed that the people at the Genesee Transportation Council, A, are smart, B, are engaged, C, have a great deal of freedom to get data in and plans out. But also they went to a seminar, a national transportation seminar in January of 2018, where somebody did presentations on what had just happened traffic-wise in 2017. And they came home, and Jim Stack, who's the director of it, called up Don Jeffries, who's the head of Visit Rochester, and said, Don, did you know that Rochester is going to be in the path of totality of an eclipse in 2024? And Don said, oh, you got to talk to Deb, because I had already been on this tear. And so we're just amazingly organized here. Everybody is playing really, really well in this sandbox. And since I've been national co-chair and I've been trying to help a lot of the other regions, I'm just here to tell you that is not the case a lot of times. A lot of times it feels like the people preparing are in opposition to the government instead of everybody working together. It's wonderful here. Western New York is just, it's part of our story, honestly, that we've just done this so sort of exquisitely well. And I know I'm bragging a little bit, but I am. So we have a, if you're interested, you can go to rochestereclipse2024.org to see all of the information. I didn't change the day on there. We're at 46 days now, not at 59 days. But it lets you see where to get glasses if you want to buy them locally, and all of the events and just information about science. There's a lot there to look at. So we also, one of the things, there's nothing that unifies a community like art. And I knew this, I've known this from long experiences. I mean, I've been studying communities and how they get things done for 2 decades in my kidsoutandAbout.com work. And so in 2019, when I first became active on the National Task Force, I ran into the world's eclipse artist. His name is Tyler Nordgren. He is an astronomer and an artist. And his poster work from the 2017 eclipse, he did many posters throughout the region, throughout the country in 2017. That was acquired by the Smithsonian for its permanent collection, all of his 2017 work. So remember, so I haven't quite described it this way, but I had an evil plan, right, going in out of 2017. And the evil plan was to make darn sure that the world knew that Rochester was prepared and welcoming and that we were doing this best. So I said to Tyler, after I got over my fangirl shock at meeting him in person, I said, Tyler, you need to come to Rochester. You need to make us a poster, and you need to make it the prettiest poster you have ever made in your life. I am persuasive. And fortunately, Tyler actually lives in Ithaca, of all places that he could live. He lives in driving distance, which is marvelous. So the very following month, in July of 2019, Tyler drove up here, and then I drove him all over our area. And I talked to him about our optics and photonics past. I talked about Kodak and Xerox and Bausch and Lomb, and how we make things out of our brains here, because we don't have things like Niagara Falls, or we don't have, wonderful Pueblo Indian, structures from long time ago. We don't have that from here. We make stuff. And so I said, you need to make us the best, most pretty thing. And so he made that. And so that was our first eclipse poster. I put it on the left side because it was not the last eclipse poster. But you see that he made very, very much of how we play with light here. We're the city that made light fun. He made us a lens font. I love this dearly. And he put the skyline in there. But the bug kind of bit when people understood that art is so powerful. So then the Rochester Museum and Science Center commissioned this poster for Rochester, which celebrates other aspects of our city. And then, well, we couldn't kind of stop. So he made one for the Erie Canal. He made one for the Finger Lakes. He made one for Wayne County. And then, contrary to his wife's direction late last year, he accepted a commission from Brockport, which is very proud that it was on the center line, and he created one for Brockport as well. He also created one for Niagara Falls and for Buffalo. So our region, when the Smithsonian acquires Tyler's 2024 work, we are going to be like, there's nowhere that has the kind of density of Tyler Nordgren art that Western New York does, really. Oh, and by the way, New York State then commissioned the official New York State poster from Tyler as well. So man, this is how art lives. Art is immortal. And so Evil Plan coming to fruition beautifully, as you can see. Okay, here I also want to interject. I know you saw Ella's picture before where she was wearing sunglasses. That was because it was 94 degrees, it was sunny, it was August, and when we weren't looking up at the sun, we wanted to look at each other. But you can't use sunglasses to look at a total solar eclipse. You can only use approved solar filters. You can't even pile 15 sunglasses on top of each other. That is not good enough. If you are going to be looking, if you're going to be using binoculars, or you're going to be using even your camera, your iPhone, or a regular camera, or a telescope, the filter goes on the outside before any magnification happens. You can't direct a telescope or binoculars up and then have the glasses near your eyes, because that's magnified light coming into your eyes. So if you're going to be trying to take pictures, do not look through your camera unless you have a filter on the outside, okay? Really important. If you don't know where to get your filters, do not just go buy them on Amazon unless you check out where the supplier is from. I said at the beginning of this that there have been, there's fraud coming in from out of the country where people have actually falsified the US lab reports to try to get on the approved list from the American Astronomical Society. That's the list on the bottom of this. It's at eclipse.aas.org. And if you just remember that, you can find it under solar filters. But you want to make sure that your supplier is on that list, or you could go to that list and click through to one of the distributors right from that list, and then you know you're safe if you want to order it, a few of them, or in bulk. Okay, so our area, as I said, has been planning for all these years. It's really ramped up recently. And you can see that these events, if I just focused on the Rochester region here, they are really spread out, and that's on purpose. If you zoomed in more, you would see that they were also spread out. And that's because we didn't want everybody convening into downtown, all these 300 to 500,000 people. That would be crazy. We wanted to avoid those traffic situations, but fortunately, a lot of the attractions are so well spread out that it's going to be, and they're all, sort of announcing themselves really beautifully, that we think we're going to get a lot of just sort of that traffic management just as a natural sort of thing. But also we have an incredible number of these. So in Indianapolis, which is in the path of totality, they've got the Indianapolis Speedway, and there's a major event at the Indianapolis Speedway. The Indianapolis Speedway can hold 150,000 people in their stands on any given day. And I guess they're used to handling that traffic, but they're also going to open up in between, I don't know what you call, like the grass, or, in between, or down there for people to be there. So they could have 300,000 people in downtown Indianapolis, or right where the Speedway is. We wanted not to do that. So we're very sort of scattered. And as we're advertising ourselves, there are many, many, many things on the itinerary, not just one Speedway thing downtown. Here's a sample of the kinds of things. And this is, instead of one major event, there are 24 right now. There aren't 24 listed here, but these are some of the major ones that have been being advertised. And a lot of them are multi-day events. So RMSC's Rock the Eclipse Festival, that's a 3-day festival, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The Solar Spectacle at Genesee Country Village is a 4-day festival, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The George Eastman Museum's Focus Click Totality is Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So Stokey Farms is a 3-day festival. You see, and the Strong Museum is like that whole week plus that the Monday after it. So there's lots and lots going on that are people can take pride, residents can take pride, and visitors can see what we're all about in our area. And so we are really, as you can gather, really proud of this. So what you guys can do as you're preparing. So you want to carve this time out for Monday. Make sure you don't have any dentist appointments, any hairstyling appointments. You're not going to go get groceries. Don't get your prescriptions that day. Fill up with gas beforehand. Don't do unnecessary travel that day. Do necessary travel. Like if you are traveling to one of the major Eclipse experiences that the Western New York is hosting, you'll want to go there, but try not to be out on the roads otherwise if possible. Make sure you have glasses and know when to use them. Remember, I'm just going to emphasize it again because the misinformation is out there. During any time you look at the sun, use your glasses. During partial eclipse, use your glasses. During total eclipse, you don't need your glasses. Take them off. Otherwise, you won't see anything, and you must experience this unimaginably beautiful thing. Then you can put them back on afterwards. If it is cloudy that day, those lovely glasses are just a souvenir. You will not need them if it's completely cloudy that day. And I'm just going to play a really quick thing from my Eclipse co-chair, Rick Feinberg, who is the safety expert who's in charge of all of the AAS certification stuff. So he's going to tell you about those glasses. I know I just said it, but he's going to say it in his way. 30 seconds.
One of the things I like to encourage people to keep in mind if a total solar eclipse is coming is that whatever they might have heard, it is perfectly safe to look at totality without eye protection. So I encourage people to get eye protection, eclipse glasses, a handheld solar viewer, or some kind of pinhole projector. But I remind them that once the eclipse is total and the moon is completely blocking the sun's bright face, they need to take that protection off and look with their own eyes because the spectacle is just so unimaginatively beautiful, and they really need to take a look.
So sometimes I have a hard time advancing the slide after it. Sorry. Try it again. Come on. Yes, there we go. So what else you can do? You want to plan for that we eclipse or a me eclipse experience. And the different people in your family may have different opinions about this. I have 12 people who are going to be staying in my house that weekend because they're piling in from New Jersey, where I'm from. And so I have people who are all across interests. What we're actually going to do is go to the Genesee Country Village because you can rent out houses at the Genesee Country Village. So we're going to be in a 19th century house where we'll have heat, we'll have Wi-Fi, even though that wasn't there in the 19th century. But so we have an in and outside place. And also those who want the we eclipse experience can go with all the thousands of people up on the big lawn. Those who want the me eclipse experience can wander off into the woods because I really have people all over the place and I wanted to make everybody happy because, yeah, I wanted to. You want to figure out where the eclipse is going to be in the sky from where you are on the ground. Now, the way to do that is you're going to go outside during the day or at night, but during the day is better. Face dead south. Put on your real or imaginary baseball cap. And then you're going to draw a line from your nose out through the right-hand corner of your baseball cap. And that is where the eclipse will happen. So for those of you who are more technical, it is 45 degrees above the horizon, south-southwest. But for those who are a little bit more challenged, look south, baseball cap, nose, right-hand corner, it's right there, halfway up in the sky. So plan that so that you can make sure that if you're going to be at your own house, that there aren't trees in the way. Well, we won't have leaves to get in the way, unfortunately, but make sure your house isn't in the way. You want to make it festive. Remember I said that it's just really cheap to make things fun with a little creativity? Do a little Googling about eclipse parties or eclipse activities, and you'll see that there's endless things you can do. The cheapest, best thing to do with kids, in my opinion, if you've got children or grandchildren coming in, black t-shirt, paper plate, some yellow or white spray paint, t-shirt on the floor, put the paper plate there and spray around the edges. Pick up the paper plate and you've got an eclipse. and let them decorate it with their name, the date, where they were, grandma's house or anything, and that will be an amazing keepsake. Name all your food, different things, name your nachos, Nebula nachos, do whatever you need to do. Look at how you've just created value and fun with no extra money. You can buy merchandise at eclipsemerchandise.com to help make it memorable. All of Tyler's artwork is on sale there. You can get it in posters. You can get it on canvas. You can get it on mugs like this. You can get it on iPhones like this. I'm not really advertising Eclipse merchandise, but I do like to make artists get the fruit of their labor. Also be an Eclipse ambassador. I am hereby deputizing every single one of you to now go out and spread the word about making, like, if, I mean, I of course mentioned the Eclipse in every conversation. My dentist canceled his all appointments 6 months ago for April 8th because I am persuasive. Or maybe he was just humoring me, but the secretary told me he really did cancel all the afternoon after I left. So that was good. You are an ambassador. Make sure that everybody knows about this because it will happen to everybody. And you want everybody to be prepared for how wonderful it is. And encourage out-of-towners, please, who are coming into town to take Tuesday too. And I have a little video about that in my next slide. Let me see. Okay. It's booting. Oh, come on.
I'm Stella Miller,
And I'm Duncan Stewart. We live in the Hudson Valley,
but on April 8th, 2024, we're going to Rochester, New York for
the great North American solar eclipse.
it's going to be amazing. But there won't be another eclipse in the US for another 21 years.
But it's on a Monday, so of course we have to take the day off of school.
Everybody on the East Coast is going to be headed out to Western New York.
The traffic getting out is going to be insane.
We're here with the public service announcement.
Everybody's taking off Monday, so take Tuesday too.
And they may be my niece and nephew. They actually are my niece and nephew. So Rochester and our entire region is crafting its eclipse story. We've been working on it for a long time, 7 years. The story is 7 years plus 3 minutes and 38 seconds plus another 120 years until the next eclipse long. Everybody under the sun is going to have a story. And so it is time, if you have not already started, to start writing yours. And if you have any questions or afterwards, you can just email me at deb@kidsouthandabout.com. I'm sure if you ask Sue or Doug where to find me, they will tell you. And I know I didn't pause, Sue, for questions. I was sort of on a roll there, but I didn't see any going on in the chat anyway. So I would love to take any questions from any of you. You can just unmute and shout them out if you have them.
While people are getting ready, Deb, we can just mention that the Cobblestone Museum also has 4 days of activities planned. You didn't touch on it, but
I don't know about them, so tell us about them.
That's a shame. We should have touched base with you ahead of the program. Yeah. Sue and Chris Capurso, who's also on this call, have got a lot of things lined up: a car show, storytelling with the local storytellers, and special foods and lots of fun things. Our blacksmith shop will be open with tours in all of our 10, well, whatever we can get into based on weather, but we have 10 buildings, so it's a possibility they can get a full campus tour. So we do invite people to come, stake a space in the lawn and sit down a blanket if weather permits and have their moment in the sun.
And that'll be free, right?
No, we have some admission charge, a regular admission charge, plus a little extra if they're taking the food package. So
got it.
Similar to what Genesee Country has created, we've created some packages for our guests as well.
Oh my gosh, I need to know all about these. That needs to go on the big itinerary list. Please.
Sue or I'll share that with you tomorrow. Okay.
Great, fantastic. I will spread the word.
I do have a question that's come into the chat. Eleanor asks, you mentioned a cloudy day will still provide a great eclipse experience. What about rain? Would that be the same as a cloudy day?
Yes, but a wetter eclipse experience. What I actually, so yeah, rain would sort of be a little bit more of a bummer. It'll kind of put a damper on the proceedings. But it will be the same kind of experience as a cloudy day. It'll go deep midnight dark. And you want to make sure, again, that you're not near any photosensitive light source. What I ended up doing, one of the talks I gave last year was to a Rotary, and the Rotarians had these wonderful ideas. Somebody said, we need clear umbrellas. And so I went and I ordered a whole bunch of clear umbrellas because we are prepared for any weather here. So I got a bunch of clear umbrellas with our logo on it, just to be that prepared, just because I don't want anything to interrupt it. But really around you, it'll be, you can just lift the umbrella up. It'll be fine because it's going to be really dark. Just make sure you don't like whack people in the head with your umbrellas. There's, I guess, a little less hand holding to be had. Oh, I'm glad you're going to Ohio for totality. Fantastic. One of the things I'll just say about Ohio, their emergency services people are fantastic. They were on this really, really early. They had an emergency management plan that they've been sharing to the other states. And so, yes, I'm sure you're going to have a good experience in Ohio.
I have a question, Deb. You said that you should be wearing your glasses even up to 99% as you're leading up to full totality. How will you know it's that magical moment when it's that time to shed the glasses and safely experience the eclipse?
Because you will see nothing and you will hear screams. It's both.
Okay.
Like, as soon as you see nothing, that's when you know it's safe to take them off. If you look, through these glasses at any time, you should be able to see absolutely nothing. And that helps you know that they are in fact working. So the only thing that really penetrates is the intense bright light of the sun. And once you can't see that, you know it's safe.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there anyone who can't experience the chat box but has a question?
At this point, if you'd like to unmute your microphones, you're welcome to share a moment with Deb.
Yeah. Has anybody ever been in the path before of totality? Did anybody go to 2017? Okay, so you're all gonna just be taking my word that this is amazing, but it really is. Oh, you can get our favorite slide. Shall I, if it's a PowerPoint slide. So what I'll do is I will share that with Sue, and maybe you can, so that one needs not to be translated to a PDF. I can give you the PDF of all of our slides, but the PowerPoint needs to have that animation. So I am very happy to give you guys that and let Sue distribute it. Or Betsy, if you just want to put your email in the chat, I can send it to you like right after this talk.
I'm more than happy to distribute it to everyone who's registered for the program. I will do that, but she's more than welcome to contact you, and you can contact Betsy. She's provided that information.
Likewise, if anyone would like to see the program again at your leisure, or we will have it recorded, it'll be available. Just let Sue or myself know, and we'll be glad to send you a link. Looks like there was a question. Did Dawn have a question?
I did. Do cities ever talk about crime that happens during the eclipse? It sounds like all of a sudden there's darkness, and I wonder, does that create?
They haven't, but that might partly be due to two things. One is that the last eclipse in 2017 was largely rural, not going through cities. So only really downtown Nashville was in totality, and some other sort of more minor cities. But also it's so brief. I don't know how much mischief, people with 3 minutes and 38 seconds or 2.5 minutes or whatever, it doesn't give you that much time, and cover of darkness happens every night. So I don't know, maybe those are the two reasons why I haven't heard any data. That'll be interesting to know this year. Yeah, that's what an interesting question.
Seems silly, but we'll need a flashlight for during the eclipse if you want to move about.
I wouldn't. I would have nothing disturbing the darkness. So you won't need one if it's a sunny day eclipse. You'll be able to see things just fine around you. It's during a cloudy day eclipse when it's really profoundly dark that I wouldn't move too much. I would just plan to stay put where you are with the people you love. Feel around gently.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about your pets? My little dog looks up at the sky all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Should we keep them inside?
Nope. Your dog will have no idea this is happening. So it's going to be like any other day for your dog. He's going to behave exactly the same way. He may get a little confused when all of a sudden it goes dark, but you know, they'll roll and they won't do anything different than they wouldn't do otherwise in the dark. There's not going to be any danger at all. As cute as it actually looks to put the glasses on dogs. There's a lot of fun pictures of that from 2017. So they look awfully cute. They don't like it and they absolutely don't need it. The sun is the same sun as it is now. So that you won't have a problem. Like whatever they do now that's not damaging their eyes, they won't know it's happening. They won't be able to see the partial eclipse the way you will, because you need the glasses to see the partial eclipse. If you just glance up at the sun during the partial, you can't see it. The sun light is so intense around the moon. That's why it was such a shock to people pre-scientific era to experience this, because they didn't see it gradually happening. It just whoosh, 1 minute. Oh my God, sudden darkness. Thanks for that compliment, Dawn.
Any other questions? I don't think there are any other questions at this time, but I just want to for sure say thank you. Thank you for such an interesting presentation, and your slides were wonderful, and you gave us information that I would have never even thought about.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it.
Right. That's the goal. You wanted to make us think about things we haven't thought about.
Yeah.
And now I see Chris. I see her like.
Yeah.
I was gonna say for Chris Caperso, I like that idea of spray painting on a black shirt to make a sun with a paper plate. What a wonderful souvenir. Yeah.
That is a good. I like that idea. Could you go over the baseball cap?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that one more time.
Face south and
Face south.
South,
Put on a
okay.
real or imaginary baseball cap.
All
And
right.
draw a line from your nose out through the right-hand corner. It probably looks like left to you, but like
No,
it's the
to the right,
right-hand corner.
Okay. All right.
And that is where it will be. So halfway up the sky,
Okay.
45 degrees above the
And-
horizon.
And just due south.
Right. So it's going to be 45 degrees above the horizon, southwest. That's why it's like to the right-hand corner of your baseball cap. But also, you know, on the sun at about 3:20 on April 1st will be just about in the same place. So it's not going to change that much. So that whole week before, you'll be able to just go out and see yourself too.
Got it.
Right now it's no good, but then it will be fine the closer you get.
Sounds like a
Very
practice trip to the lawn is in order.
I think that's a good
and
idea.
As you're doing events, you guys at the museum need to make sure that there are no photosensitive light sources at all. Even like, I mean, maybe there have to be some by law for safety somewhere, but I would try to cover or turn off all that you can. And then that is something you want to advertise, because you are away from the bright lights of the cities. And so your darkness is going to be a darker darkness than it is closer to the cities. It is a selling point, no question about it. Lean into the dark sky. Even if it's a cloudy day eclipse, especially if it's a cloudy day eclipse, everybody near Rochester or near Buffalo is going to have the bouncy light bouncing off the clouds from underneath, but you won't so much.
We'll quote you on that, Deb, and put it on our website.
Do that. It's fine. Lean into the darkness, embrace the darkness. You guys have, it's darker. It's more interesting.
Very good.
Adrienne, did you have a question? I see you're unmuted. Did you want to ask something? I guess not.
I guess not.
Okay. Thank you guys so
I think
much
we're
for
winding
having
down.
me.
Thank you, Deb.
It's been fun, and I will send that stuff to Sue before I leave my office and go home.
Good.
And to you too, Betsy.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Have a good night, all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. It was great.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Bet.
Thank you so much. Good night.